So hello everybody, I am Sadhika Tiwari, I'm 21-year-old and I'm a journalist. And I'm going to talk about what I've experienced as a journalist in all these years. So I've wanted to be a journalist ever since I was in 3rd standard. And because I was always so keen on being a journalist, I have always pretended that I already am one. So when I was young and we used to go for vacations with family, I used to carry this tiny notebook with a pen and I used to keep taking notes here and there, pretending that I already am a journalist. Over these years, I have seen a change in the tones of people when they hear that you're a journalist. From respect, it's come down to a sincere sense of disbelief and anger. To quote the first instance, we have a college newspaper. I was the editor of the newspaper. There were certain disagreements on some content between the college authorities and the editorial team. And the entire class during the time used to joke about how the editors will go to the jail. Sadly enough, it didn't stay a joke for long. And it came as a serious warning from the college authorities that we might go to jail, despite the article being true to all journalistic standards. But that's a different story. The sad part here is the fact that questioning the authorities as journalists is considered to be something equal to being something criminal. Now, the second instance is this random Facebook post that I put on one day. It's an observation about how the biggest dilemma for urban upper middle class people is the difference between dahi and yogurt. And this was the cute story of how Western imperialism got us. A very random joke, some person comments on it saying, look at these journalists trying to impose their dilemmas on urban masses. It shows how human beings these days react to other human beings reporting their own anxieties. That means we're doing the job wrong somewhere. The third instance is these random Facebook posts and comments that I keep coming across on Twitter and on Facebook, where people assume the premise to what I'm talking. When what I'm saying it just becomes, people's perceptions towards it just becomes presumptuous because they assume that I'm a journalist and I will come with a certain set of values. We don't look at journalists anymore as the watchdogs of democracy or as people who will voice our opinions. We look at journalists as somebody who we need to listen to when all the other channels, all the other TV entertainment channels are on an ad break, and somewhere some TV news channel is showing us the rasta to the Swar ki Siri. Now, let's all take a moment and remind ourselves of the headlines that we have seen in the past 1 week, on your phones, in the newspaper, in the magazines, anywhere. Now, for a moment, go back to the GK books of 7th, 8th standard, chapters on Indian diversity about how the country is such a diverse land. Now, put these two pieces of information together. Do you think that the stories that the media shows you today are representative of this huge, huge country? Of course, no. The amount of stories that the media chooses to not show us and that we eventually stop caring about is humongous. The amounts of facts, the misleading facts that the media feeds us is whopping. The media that we consume today is laced with political interests, the interests of the advertisers, and has become conveniently selective. To bring this point home, I'm going to talk about something that I have personally worked very closely with. Half the population, almost half the population in the country are women. 60% of the total population of the country is dependent on agriculture as their profession. Do you know that the entire amount of food that is produced in this country today, 78% of it is produced by women? Only 13% women in the country own land right now. No official data has the data on farmer suicides if these farmers are women farmers. Now let me tell you a story. The woman in this picture in the yellow sari, her name is Bhagwati. She's 55 years old. She's so poor that she buys $5 of oil each day to go and cook each meal. She faces domestic violence from her husband, who is wheelchair-ridden, and from her son. When she goes and works in the field, she gets $120 for the same amount of work that any man would get paid $200. The problem right now in the country is that the Supreme Court took until 2005 to realize that daughters have a right over paternal property. The problem is that the Constitution of India still doesn't recognize women farmers explicitly in their definition, despite attempt being made since 2002. We need to realize the fact right now that we live in a country where only 13% women own land, as I told you, and that is the core problem. When women do not own land, or when any farmer does not own land, you're not entitled to any sort of government subsidies. When that doesn't happen, your cost of investment increases. When your cost of investment goes high, you need loans. But you can't get a Kisan credit because, of course, you don't have land, so you can't get Kisan credit card again. Which leads you to the local money lender who charges you thrice the interest. Now your cost of input goes high, the returns are meager. So what do? You end up doing what most farmers in the country do, which is commit a suicide. Although if you're a woman, even that won't do much good to you, because that won't get any compensation for your kids that you leave behind. Had you been a man, the story would have been completely different. So practically what I'm trying to say right now is, it's maybe slightly easier for me to be a NASA scientist than be a woman farmer. That's an absolutely bad joke, because I have no skills whatsoever to be a NASA scientist. Now you must wonder, why did I tell you that entire story? I told you this story because when this story reaches you, this is how it looks. All these struggles, all the adversities, and what the media chooses to show you is this sensational piece of information. And I also strongly believe that had a woman reported this story, had a woman overlooked this story, had a woman reported this story, or had a woman approved this story, the headline probably would have looked a slightly more different, a slightly more better version of what it looks right now. The fact that more women need women to represent them in the media cannot be stated enough number of times, but that's a story for some other day. Now, coming to more facts. Do you know that the government of India collected funds over a huge period of time, promising that these will be invested to create a cleaner environment? And then one fine day, all those funds were diverted to promote some other policy. Do you know that the laws governing the wetlands of the country are being relaxed? Do you know that we're making it easier for the industries to pollute by each passing day? Do you know that the eggs that you consume are antibiotic resistant? So one day you might just pop an antibiotic pill and it would stop working on your body because of the poultry that you're consuming. Do you know that the president's own office, yes, the president of India's own office, leaked the Aadhaar details of 5 people, which is flouting the rule of the land, the president's own office. So many things, so many huge things happened in the last month. But what did we see the last month? We saw this. And we saw this. And you must wonder, why does any of this matter to you? It matters to you because you are losing your right as a viewer to see what you want to see, what you should be shown, and what is any responsible media's duty to show you. The sad thing here is that the media sets an agenda and it shows you what it wants you to see. This, and this is dumbing you down as a viewer. Also at this point, I need to tell you something. The fact that India has fallen down to 136th number on the Global Press Freedom Index. The data just came recently. And we're 136th. That is below the war-torn Palestine, which means that a lot of journalists who want to get their stories to you cannot do so because they don't have the resources and, unfortunately, not the freedom to do that. So when you ask questions, you empower the media, you empower yourself, and you empower the society. Because these questions need to be asked. The media needs to be questioned, the government needs to be questioned. And you as a viewer have every right to ask these questions. Because you pay for what you watch. And that you're paying for what you're watching, you have every right to question its authenticity and its credibility. Because you need to realize your power as a viewer. Because when you do that, this story about Bhagwati's land rights become important to the media if you refuse to watch this. This woman who delivered a baby on the hospital floor becomes news if you refuse to watch this. This farmer who committed a suicide, yes, in that manner on that transformer, will be shown on your television sets the entire day as breaking news if you refuse to consider this as breaking news. The incessant sexism, misogyny, misinformation, selective representation, misrepresentation, noise, and a gazillion other nonsense will be continued to be aired on your television sets as news till the time you choose to refuse to watch it. We need brave journalists, we do, but we also need brave viewers. Thank you.